After he passed overhead, he turned very sharply to the right, which would have been west, and still at that time no power, and so I began to wonder what was going on. At that time he then made a very sharp turn to the left, very steep, past 90 degrees, and at that time he was only about 50 feet above the ground, and at that point he stalled, and the airplane hit the ground just short of the southeast runway, and that's when I ran over to the airplane.
Did you see the victims?
Yes.
What condition they appear to be in?
Well, the passenger didn't appear to be hurt seriously. He was just lacerated about the face. The pilot appeared to be severely lacerated about the face, and also I think he was probably pretty seriously injured. I don't think critically, though. Neither one of them appeared to be anyway.
Is it possible that almost everyone in a city could die by the insertion of some poison or some other foreign material in the water supply? No. And here's one of the reasons why. This is the City of Dallas pumping station. No water in sight, and not likely ever to be any. It's entirely covered over. It's a booster station, and it's typical of those the city operates. Water Director Henry Graeser says it's virtually impossible that anyone could ever poison the water supply of an entire city, especially a city the size of Dallas.
There's just too much water, and they would have to spray it out over the system to have any massive effect in many, many points. In addition to which, we monitor. We carry a chlorine residual in the system, which in itself would have the effect of killing any bacteria which are introduced to the system. And with dilution, this would, of course, reduce the bacteria concentration, at the same time expose it to more chlorine. So there's little likelihood that anyone could carry out the kind of plan that these young men were attempting.
The Legal Aid Foundation is identical, at least in concept, to the Dallas Legal Services Project. That in itself almost prevented the foundation from ever coming into being. Although few people would admit it publicly, the Tarrant County Senior Bar Association did not want a Legal Aid Foundation in Fort Worth. Their unofficial spokesman started hinting some months ago that they didn't want the same sort of, quote, crusading and troublemaking which they attributed to the Dallas Legal Services Project. In fact, the project in Fort Worth might never have been funded, even though most of the money is federal, had not the senior bar been assured it would have control of the foundation's efforts. The board will be controlled, if not by the senior bar per se, at least by the establishment. There will be 4 target area representatives and 8 other representatives, chosen from the federal, senior, and junior bar associations. There are those who say that this establishment control factor is the reason so few people are seeking poverty posts on the board. Another view indicates that perhaps the people in the target areas in Fort Worth just do not choose to get involved. Whichever the case may be, the observation of one semi-militant Fort Worth man seemed valid. He told me, quote, one way or the other, the election is a lot more like an appointment process than like a democracy in action. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News on the Move, at the CAA in Fort Worth.
The West Coast dock strike is now winding up its second day, and it looks like President Nixon may have to take some kind of action in order to get some 1,000 dock workers back on the jobs. When you think of imports, the first thing you may think of is automobiles, or maybe it's booze, or maybe it's the clothes you wear, or maybe it's some of the foods you buy in your grocery stores. There are so many things this nation imports. It's a billion-dollar trade program annually. Particularly from the east at the present time, all things are at a standstill, and believe it or not, it affects about 20% of our workforce. On News 8 at noon today, we talked to Mr. Darrell J. Seekin, a custom importer, and we asked him what effect it will have on the local economy. Business still has not recovered, according to Mr. Seekin, from the 100-day strike of last spring. Many firms adversely affected are still in trouble. Financially, that strike cost us $1.4 billion. And what about exports? Texas happens to be the #1 exporter of cotton in the world. That cotton is now sitting on the docks on the West Coast, awaiting transfer to the East. And just today, it was determined that shippers have stopped all shipments to South Vietnam to our troops. They say it's a pressure tactic to bring the longshoremen around to their way of thinking. The president may have to move in to stop this strike, and if he is going to, he must do so soon. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
So as you see what they've done, they're capturing the most effective element of competition in each individual market and making him become a positive force for price declines, or therefore for price stability. It's a very clever program. It's new, it's unique, it does not repeat the mistakes of the past. It has great reason to be hopeful.
Will it work? It will work?
It has worked so far, and it looks like it will work, very much so. I'm very confident.
The silver screen. And when the sun goes down, one is invited to see adult action antics, torrid love scenes, the latest in contemporary grown-up movies. For 4 years now, a struggle has been going on between the more conservative elements of the citizenry of Azle, Texas, and the ownership of the Eagle Drive-In. At issue is those torrid love scenes. At first, the battle contained itself primarily to the problem of being able to see the screen from public streets. That has been stopped now by police department action in Azle. The next step is in its formative stages. There are petitions being signed around the city now, hoping that the movies can be stopped altogether. A spokesman for the Azle Ministerial Alliance is the Reverend John Allman.
What we are trying to accomplish is to try to make sure that the people in our community don't have to see scenes of nudity and sexual acts of every type and description from their homes.
The matter has been tested in court under the standing law now, and the owner of the Eagle Drive-In won. So now the issue is whether or not a stronger pornographic movie law can be written into the bylaws of the city of Azle, along the guidelines of those in Grand Prairie, Fort Worth, and a number of other cities. That law has been tested all the way to, but not including, the Supreme Court of the United States. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News on the Move at Azle.
The request for money came from gubernatorial candidate Dolph Briscoe. Briscoe was in Dallas at noon today for a luncheon talk and a little bit of fundraising at the Cipango Club. Talking to Democratic supporters, he claimed it's time for a change in state government, and he told lunchers that Dallas is the key to being elected governor in Texas.
Dallas has been a key, the key to the growth and development of this great state of ours, and Dallas is the key to this election. And I'm here today to ask for your help and your support in the governor's race this year.
Republicans got in on the act, too. Earlier today, State Representative Fred Egnich called a news conference to say he would not run for governor but would seek re-election to the state legislature. During that conference, Agnich attacked the status quo in Austin.
During the past session, those voicing public opposition to Gus Mutcher were few in number. Now it has become the thing politically for most of his supporters to disavow their allegiance. While I do not wish to cast doubt on the sincerity of any of my fellow legislators, nonetheless, I will feel much better being back in the House, making sure they do not suffer another change of heart.
And this afternoon, State Senator Mike McCool announced he'd run for Congress in the newly created 24th Congressional District. The announcement came as no surprise to anyone. It's been an open secret for weeks. McCool says if he gets elected, he'll represent the majority of people in that new district, the middle and lower incomes.
Wage earners, teachers, salesmen, senior citizens, public employees, small businessmen, professional men, and many others. All hard-working, honest, law-abiding, and heavily burdened by spiraling inflation and high taxes. I am entering this race to help alleviate the heavy burden on the middle and lower income groups.
The three statements today by three different candidates can only be considered as representative of things to come. Even if courts uphold single-member districts in the state legislature, Dallasites will find themselves facing 36 names on the ballot come November. You can expect to hear from all of them by then. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News, on the move.
Okay, over to the left.
Because I recognize Dallas as the key to this election. And I'm convinced that with your
Everybody ready? Offers of support from
The middle part?
How about then
I'll read whatever part you want.
You got KRLDs down. Yep. Use for audio.
Higher income groups, but these groups are the ones that need the help. The 24th deserves a congressman who will stand up and fight against inflation, against high automobile. Texas is the only state that doesn't have competitive rates. Combat this.
As far as the consumer's concerned, prices, we feel, are going to hold about 2% higher than what they were during the base period. That means that the consumer is going to benefit from 3 to 3.5% on what they have had before because of this control plan.
Well, back to the analogy about what the dollar is going to buy in your stores. Is it going to buy less?
The dollar will buy about the same when you take all the factors into consideration.
Why do you feel you lost the governor, the election for governor?
Well, actually, I didn't lose. I was depressed that we lost. We feel like that we won. The matter of fact, we were able to run in Mississippi. Well, 8 years ago, they killed my brother, and 6 years ago, they killed 2 of my dear friends. And they were only trying to get us registered. And now, today, I'm the mayor of a town with the black government, and I ran for governor, got over 200,000 votes. And we ran with black and white ticket over near 300 candidates for office. And we won some 49 of them. See, if we can ever get our white brothers to stop rejoicing, particularly those who are against progress, the fact that a black man did not maybe go as far as he had hoped, and stop using the word crush, the press play, they crushed the blacks. Well, they didn't crush the blacks, they crushed Americans. And they crushed people who were trying to do it the American way. Through politics and through economics.
Well, the poor people are in the process right now of possibly losing any transportation system they might have at all. At this point, the transportation that we do have is not, for all practical purposes, not worth even having. In other words, the buses are old, deteriorated. The fumes in the buses are pretty bad. Now, people have actually get sick on these things, they're so bad. They're crowded, they're not air conditioned. This whole system in itself is going to pot for all practical purposes.
What proposal does the HRC offer to correct the problem?
We projected a 5-year plan, which at the end of this 5 years, we should have one of the best transit systems in the nation. We'll start out by buying buses at a ratio that was, first thing, actually, we've got to have the money. And this is what we hope that the city council will go along and give us this money to go ahead and get into the bus system.
Susan was a product of her age, you see. She was a Quaker. She was a very moral woman. And she certainly wasn't out to break down the double standard, as some of the gals are today. But on the other hand, she had another difference with them. Some of the women's lib gals sound as if they think men are at fault. They blame all men. They make men the villain. And this is where Aunt Susan would have split with them sharply, because she would have said, some of my best friends are men. And she did, and they were, beginning with her father, you see, who launched and nurtured her and made her what she was, you see. And she did not see men as the villain. She saw certain elements of the power structure, yes, in society, but they were historical, societal causes, not sexual causes. Those would be the big differences.